Welcome to my next Lost. Season 4 episode review video. Before I get into that, though, pretty important if you are caught up to the point where I am in rewatching or watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, you find you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, everyone, I've already seen the TV series Lost 3 other times. It's in my top 5 favorite TV series of all time, as a matter of fact. I love it. But currently, I'm not the only one that's watching Lost. The legendary Crazy Coffeeman, who you see in my comment section for Dexter stuff, Lucifer, Breaking Bad, and sometimes physical media videos, is actually watching Lost for the very first time. He's in for a treat. So, join us on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show in the comment section. However, I don't want to see any spoilers past this episode. So with all that said, this will be Lost, Season 4, Episode 9. The title of this episode is called The Shape of Things to Come, and this will be my review reaction recap after just finishing watch the episode. We start with Jack and Kate. They smile and wave at each other as Kate digs her bare feet into the sand and lowers one of the straps on her top, hinting at something, but actually I think she's just cleaning herself. Jack goes into his tent and goes through the box of medicines. Kate comes in and tells him he looks awful. He takes what he says are antibiotics and says that he has a stomach bug. They flirt until they hear Vincent barking and then hear Bernard's calls for help. They run to investigate and find a dead body that's come to shore. They pull it from the water, and Daniel Faraday reveals that the body is Ray, the freighter's doctor. His throat is slit. Sawyer, Locke, and Hurley are playing Risk, one of my favorite board game of all time when board games were popular. In my middle school and high school days, I played it all the time. Nowadays, I play it like maybe once or twice a year if I'm lucky. I love Risk. However, my friend Chuck would always win at Risk because he got lucky. I would always be the one that would go after him, but I can't beat him alone because he gets lucky with dice rolls. And nonetheless, Risk, I love Risk. But Alex is captured by the group of the 6 mercenaries from the freighter that we saw in the last episode, led by Martin Keamy. They remove her blindfold at the sonic fence surrounding the barracks and order her to deactivate the fence. She wants them to make a promise because the survivors have a baby with them, but Keamy holds a gun to her head and she enters the code 1623 and disarms the fence. Locke, Sawyer, and Hurley hear the phone ring. Locke picks up the receiver and hears an automated message repeating code 14-J. Ben is playing the piano in another room in the house and is agitated when Locke and Sawyer come in and tell him about the phone call. Ben then opens up the piano bench and pulls off a sawed-off shotgun, gives some shells, and hands it to Sawyer, a surprise Sawyer, and then they take up position at Locke's house, which was formerly Ben's, blockading doors and windows. Locke demands to know what is going on, and Ben replies, "They're here." A very freaked out, bug-eyed Ben. And then we have our flash forward starting. A disoriented Benjamin Linus wakes up on the ground in the middle of the Sahara Desert wearing a parka with a Dharma logo and the name Halifax on it. His right arm has a deep wound on it, and there appears to be steam evaporating off of him. Ben vomits, and 2 armed men on horseback approach. One of the people speaking Arabic points out how Ben does not have a trail. The other replies, "Where did this guy come from? Down from the sky?" Ben asks them if they speak English, and then he gets no reply. He asks them if they speak Arabic and then Turkish, but they still do not speak with him. As one searches him, he feels something hard in Ben's pocket. Ben pulls out a metal cylinder, which is a telescopic baton. He spins around, beats the other guy who is searching him, and then takes his gun and shoots the other guy that's on the horse. And the beaten one says, "Surrender, surrender." And then Ben's like, "So you do speak English?" And then he hits him with the rifle butt. And then Ben ties off his arm wound and then rides off on their horse that the guy fell off of after he got shot and killed. Back to the island. Ben warns Sawyer not to go outdoors, but he goes to wake Claire from her house and fetch her. Ben tells Locke that he must survive the attack so that the two of them, with Hurley to guide them, can go get help from Jacob. Jack asks when Daniel last saw Ray. Daniel replies, when is kind of a relative term. Sawyer tells Doug, this other survivor, to get inside, but gunfire from the tree line kills Doug, Jerome, and some woman. Sawyer manages to dodge the gunfire, returns shots with his handgun, and works his way to Claire's house just in time to see it destroyed by one of the mercenaries. It blows up, essentially. Back to our flash forward, Ben checks into a hotel in Tanzania. The desk clerk asks if it is the first time he's in Tanzania, but he tells her he has been there before, though it has been a while. He gives his name of Dean Mortuary, or I can't remember, it's not pronounced how it's spelled, but Mortuary or Mortuary, something like Mortuary, something like that, and introduces himself as a preferred guest. The clerk looks for the name in the book and treats him with additional respect, asking if there is anything she can do for him. He asks the clerk the date, to which she says October 24th, and then Ben clarifies the year, asking 2005, and then the clerk confirms the year, looking a little surprised. As he heads to his room, Ben overhears Saeed's name mentioned on the television and turns to watch a news broadcast showing Saeed getting into a car as he is being hounded by the press, telling them he just wants to bury his wife in peace. And then after the house explodes, the gunfire ceases. Sawyer searches through the rubble of the house and finds Claire scratched but otherwise uninjured. As he picks her up, she is dazed and calls him Charlie. Sawyer yells for the others to open the front door as he carries Claire, but it is blockaded by furniture. Against Ben's wishes, do not open the door. Ben's wishes to not open the door, I should say. Hurley throws an ottoman through the front window and allows them in. So he didn't open the door, but he broke a window so Sawyer could get in. Shortly afterward, the doorbell rings. Sawyer sees who is at the door and unblocks and opens it to let Miles, who has a walkie-talkie from the mercenaries. Miles says they want to talk to Ben. Back to our flash forward, Ben emerges from an SUV labeled Press and slips up a stairway to the top floor. He pulls a camera with a zoom lens from a bag and snaps a photo of a man watching the funeral procession for Saeed's wife, Nadia. Nadia, remember her? He then turns the camera towards Saeed using his flash. Saeed appears to spot Ben, who hurries back downstairs. In the street, Saeed tackles Ben to the ground. Saeed questions how he got to Iraq. Ben says he slipped in via the Syrian border. Saeed says that he meant, how did Ben get off the island? And Ben tells Saeed he left via Desmond's sailboat, the Elizabeth, and after landing at Fiji, he chartered a plane. He also explains that a man at the place, whom identifies from a traffic camera still as Ishmael Bakir, was sent by Charles Whitmore to kill Saeed's wife in Los Angeles. She was killed 3 blocks from the corner of La Brea and Santa Monica. 5 days earlier, Saeed vows to kill the man, saying it is now his war too. Back to our current time, Ben initially refuses to talk to them, the mercenaries, but Miles tells Ben that their hostage is Alex. Ben talks with Keamy, who instructs him to look out the window so they can talk face to face. Keamy asks Ben to come out and promises not to harm anyone else, but Ben tells him his violent history and that he knows exactly what kind of man he is and that he cannot be trusted. Keamy drops the formalities and Alex is brought and forced to kneel at gunpoint. Keamy instructs Ben to walk out the front door and no one in the house will get hurt. Ben refuses and issues a counteroffer, instructing the mercenaries to turn around and leave to forget the island. And Keamy tells Alex to say goodbye. She tells Ben over the walkie that they killed Carl and Daniel Russo. And then Keamy tells Ben that he has 10 seconds. So at this point, like, Ben's like, that's not my daughter. This is her mother had her born and I took her over, but that's not my daughter. And then as Kimi counts down, Ben says that Alex means nothing to him in addition to that, as he took her from the insane woman, and that she is just a pawn, nothing more. Alex hears this in anguish and pleads for her life, and then Ben declares that he is not coming out of the house, and Kimi shoots and kills Alex in front of Ben. And this was in the head. She's dead. That's heartbreaking. Alex is a character that didn't get a lot of time on Lost, but we didn't really know a lot about Alex, but I don't think Alex deserved this. Ben stares in shock before muttering, he changed the rules, and quickly retreats to his secret room where he steals a blast door, or he seals a blast door behind him. Ben pushes aside his hanging suits and reveals another secret doorway. The walls appear to be made of stone, and the door is carved with some sort of hieroglyphics. He opens the door and walks in. Back to our flash forward, Ben is watching Ishmael while being served coffee by a waiter in the cafe. Suddenly, Ishmael leaves and Ben pursues but loses him. Ben turns into an alley where Ishmael appears behind him. He asks who Ben is and why he is following him, and Ben identifies himself and explains that he needs to carry a message to Charles Whitmore. Ishmael asks what the message is, and Saeed shoots him, continuing to pull the trigger even after his magazine clip is empty. Ben tells him not to let his grief become anger, but Saeed wants revenge as he found Nadia and married her but buried her, asking, who's next? Ben pleads with Saeed to think about what he is doing with his life, telling him he doesn't need to get involved. Saeed stands his ground and Ben promises to contact him. As Ben walks away, he has a smirk on his face. I feel like this is all a setup by Ben. I don't really remember parts of season 4 and season 5 that well. I know parts here and there, but I don't remember every little detail. Sawyer shouts and beats on the blast door that closed behind Ben when Claire emerges from another room carrying Aaron and asks, what's going on? Sawyer asks Claire, you all right, sweetheart? And then she tells him, yeah, a bit wobbly, but I'll live. To which Miles replies, well, I wouldn't be too sure about that. Ben emerges from his secret room covered in black stuff. He orders everyone to leave the house in 1 minute to run for the tree line on his command. A rumbling is heard and the smoke monster thunders into the camp and plunges into the tree line. The monster is multiple thick columns of black smoke, so it's the smoke monster cutting through the trees. There is some sort of electrical discharge going off inside the smoke, which causes a flashing white light and cracking noises. The survivors watch in awe as it attacks the mercenaries in the woods. Hurley questions whether Ben summoned the monster as it draws farther away, and Locke and the survivors escape into the jungle while Ben lingers momentarily to say goodbye to Alex. Claire, Aaron, Hurley, Sawyer, Miles, Ben, and Locke are the only survivors of the mercenary attack. Daniel Faraday partially repairs the satellite phone using wiring from the plane enough to communicate with the freighter in Morse code. He transmits what happened to the doctor and listens as the freighters reply. Daniel Faraday says that the response from the freighter was that Desmond and Saeed are fine and that the helicopter would return in the morning. Bernard steps forward to say that the reply was, what are you talking about? The doctor is fine. Under pressure from an angry Jack, Faraday reveals the freighter never planned to rescue anybody from the island after all. Jack doubles up in pain and stumbles away. Ben catches up with the rest of the group at the creek. Locke tells Ben he's sorry about his daughter. Sawyer is frustrated with Locke and Ben's plan to go and see Jacob and decides to leave for the beach. Miles, Hurley, Claire, and Aaron go with him, but as they turn to leave, Locke pulls a gun out on Sawyer. He insists that Hurley stay to guide them to Jacob's cabin, and then Sawyer pulls a gun out as well. They have a standoff at gunpoint, but Hurley agrees to go with Locke and talks them into putting down their weapons. Sawyer tells Locke if he harms one hair on Hurley's curly head, he'll kill him. Back to our flash forward, Ben emerges from a taxi and enters a building. He tricks the doorman, claiming to be heading to a Mr. and Mrs. Kendrick in apartment 4A, but instead has a key to allow the elevator to go down the penthouse suite. Ben makes his way into a bedroom and he calls Charles, who wakes up. Ben inquires as to when Whitmore started sleeping with a bottle of scotch by his bed. Whitmore replies when the nightmare started. Charles asks Ben if he has come to kill him. Ben says, "We both know I can't do that." He instead accuses Whitmore of changing the rules and killing his daughter. The two argue about who bears responsibility for Alex's death. The debate concludes with Ben vowing to kill Whitmore's daughter, Penelope Penny, so that he will know the same pain Ben knows. Whitmore claims to know what Ben is, saying everything Ben has he took from Whitmore. Ben says Charles will wish he hadn't changed the rules. Whitmore counters that Ben will never find her and that he wants his island back. Ben tells Whitmore he will never find the island. Whitmore says that the hunt is on for both of them, and then Ben says, "Sleep tight, Charles," and that's what ends this episode of Lost. So, good episode, 8.8 out of 10. Our character of the episode is obviously Benjamin Linus. Secondary character, Sawyer, John Locke, and rest in peace to Alex, and she lost her mom and her boyfriend in the previous episode. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smashing the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section and interact with me and the legendary Crazy Coffee Man. What's your score of this episode? Who's your character or characters of the episode? And anything else that you want to add. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. Subscribe to the channel. You're watching the video anyway. Help me get to 100,000 subscribers. Join the team, Sugar Dam Support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDad TV.